Well, so my name is Quinteiro. I am currently working in Blend Labs staff augmentation project. And this presentation, we will talk about sharing code between React and React Native. So this is our index.js. This will be what the presentation will be about. We will first see the case scenario where to apply this, then why to share the code, how to share it, showing different alternatives, and how to build your components, and the advantages of a monorepo, and then a real quick demo to show it working. Okay, so as you may know, there are a lot of situations in which our client or the project requires us to build a web app and a mobile app that have a lot of things in common. Maybe they have the same business logic, they hit the same API, or they even have the same configuration. And in many cases, also in my experience, what we have done was to duplicate the code, to have the same business logic in each repository, and that can lead to a lot of difficult situations. More importantly, when the project starts growing and gets bigger and bigger, at first it's not a problem, but then we start finding that each apps have different implementations of the same business logic that shouldn't be that way. So a really useful case scenario to apply this architecture is when we have almost the same business logic for both projects. So then why to share the code? Well, as I said before, we need to prevent duplicating the code between the apps, because this is not a good practice. If we can take advantage of what React and React Native offer us, that is that the code is written in JavaScript or TypeScript, what we can do is use exactly the same code between both apps. This will prevent bugs, and if we have bugs, we will fix them only one time in one place, and we don't have to fix it in different repositories and in different ways that may also lead to different results. Also, if we need to test our business logic, we will do it only one time. This is really useful because we have to do the work once, and all these items will lead obviously to a faster development because we'll be writing less code. So well, we have different approaches to share code. There isn't a good or a bad approach. We just have to evaluate each situations in which we need to share code. So for example, a really useful approach, that is the one that I will be showing in this presentation, is the monorepo approach. So how this is done is we have only one repository with all our React and React Native code in the same repository. So, so the business logic, for example, the Redux logic, the utils, everything will be in the same project and accessible for both apps. This is the recommended approach when starting a project from zero. Then you have different alternatives. For example, you can store all your business logic and the React stuff, the utils, configurations, translations into an NPM package and importing it as any NPM package the same way we do it frequently. This is a good approach also, and it's a really nice way of doing it if we want to refactor an existing project, because instead of throwing all our repositories away and having to start from scratch, what we can do is just abstract the business logic and put it in a repository and delete the business logic from both repos and using it from that npm package. And a third way of doing it, I think there are many other ways, but these are the ones that I've been researching, is, well, sharing the business logic and the views between both apps. I had mentioned this before, but as you may know, React and React Native have different ways or different syntaxes for the views. React Native uses JSX with some specific tags for React Native, and React uses JSX with plain HTML. So even though there are many libraries that enable us to share the code, the view code for both apps, so that we have to write it only once and it will work in React and in React Native. I particularly don't like this approach because it will end up doing a mess. And also, if you have different designs for the mobile app and for the web app, this will sooner or later give you a headache because you will have to start patching things up in order to satisfy both these designs, but with the same code, and that will be a mess. So this is not very recommended, but you can do it if you want. There are ways of doing it. So, well, I will start talking about the advantages of a monorepo. So this is something that is really useful about React Native, is that React Native will execute, if you configure the files with extension .native.js, React Native will execute those files instead of the plain .js. So for example, this is a real quick example. If you have a home view.js and a home view.native.js, you can import, by importing without specifying the extension, each platform will take the file that they need. So for example, here we have a container that has a home view, and the home view is imported without specifying extension. So for the case of React Native, it will go and look the view for the mobile design, and in the case of the web, it will go and look for the .js file that has the web design. This is really useful and is what will power all this architecture, because this way we can abstract each views from the business logic, and without doing much work by importing them. So, well, then another useful thing of the monorepo is that we have all the business logic in the same project. This is really useful because when we are modifying something, we just have to make a pull request, and the other developers will have the same logic that we change at the same time, and this won't break things up. This is something that may happen with an NPM package approach, because as you may know, NPM packages manage different versions, and if you don't have the same version, I mean the latest version of the package, in this case, you may be working with an old business logic, and this would lead to bugs and to many other difficulties. This is something that also that it can be mitigated doing some configurations to the npm package, to the way you import, to the way you install the packages. But it's clearly something that we won't have a problem with a monorepo. So this is a really nice approach. So then, how to build our components so that we can implement this architecture? There are many ways of doing this. As always in development, we have different ways of doing the same thing. But well, one way that I found is building presentational and container components. A presentational component only contains the views and the minimal logic that affects the views. For example, if you want to click a button and show a slide, we'll have that logic inside the view, but we won't have any business logic inside the views. So these are also known as dumb components because they don't do anything like really logic. They only show things, and they don't know how they get the data. They only know that they get it. So that's where the container components enter into action, because these are the ones that have all the business logic. They make the API calls, they call the utils functions if they have to do things, and they are the ones that they render the presentational components and they send them the props. Also, the container components are the ones that are connected to the React store. So this way we have things separated, and we can achieve what I show you back here. So this component that we see here, this is a container component, and you can see that we are calling the presentational component through the home view. Later in the presentation, we will see a demo with this explained clearly. Well, so sooner than later. So let's see some code so we can show it clearly. So what we'll be seeing is a demo app that I built, a real quick one. This is a news app that hits a news API, and here we have the same app in a mobile device. This is an iPhone simulator, but it's the same idea. So, okay, so what are we doing here? Let me close everything. Okay, so as you may see, everything starts from the index.js. We have an index.web.js and an index.js. This web extension is completely arbitrary. I just configured Webpack to start for the index.web, but you can write whatever you want here and it will work. And as you can see, here we are. We have a Redux container. This Redux container is imported from our same app.redux. Here is where our business logic will be. So here we have the components, and we have our Redux with our action types, the API, and the reducers. And in the index.js, we have the Redux container that receives the children and it provides a store. So it's the same for the case of React and React Native. So React will render the index.js, and React Native the other way around. React will render the web.js, and React Native will render the index.js. And here we are calling our only screen, that is the home screen. But this is just an example. Here you could call whatever you want. For example, if you need to handle the navigation for a mobile app or the routers for the web app, here you instead of calling only one screen, you could call the navigation, and this will work because it is embedded inside the Redux container. So let's see the home component. Let's close this. Okay. So as I showed you before in the slides, this is the same component, and this is the container component. It is connected to Redux. And well, here we get the actions through which we get the news, and these are the two properties, the news and if it's loading. And we just do whatever we need to do here. This is a really small kind of business logic for the get news, but well, it works for the example. And to the home view, we send DR props that they will be the news and the loading. So let's first see the React Native one. Okay, so here we have our React Native view. It shows a flat list, an activity indicator, and well, it renders a news item that applies the styles we defined here. As you may see now, this design is completely different from what we have here. Even though it looks kind of similar, we can change colors. We can do whatever we want with this design. We could even show in React Native a slider showing the most important news or whatever we want, because it doesn't matter. This is abstracted from the logic, so we can do with the views whatever design we want. This is the flexibility that this approach gives us, and the business logic remains the same, and is the same for both repositories. So well, here I wrote inline styles. You can clearly use class names importing a CSS file, but to do it quick, I wrote it here. It's kind of messy, but it works. Well, as you may see, for example, here we have an activity indicator to show the loading status, and here what we have is a loading news paragraph. So well, that's the main idea of this approach. The folder structure, you could also modify it if you want. Here we have the iOS and Android folders that are generated by React Native, well, inside the app, what I did was put all the components and the Redux, but you can structure this any way you want. The most important part of this approach is maintaining the presentational and container architecture between to build the components and to keep the business logic as separated from the views as possible. So just a real quick roadmap of how I built this project. We have kind of a couple of warnings. But what I did was just to, what I first did was just to start by creating a React Native app with npx React Native init. This way, the project was built with all these Android folders with the basic React Native folder structure. And then I added a webpack config and a web file so that we can, this is a needed configuration so that we can execute the web app with the same code. But other than that, it's really easy to set it up. So yeah, I think I made it really quick, but that's the idea of the presentation. Well, I can show you a bit of the demo. We can change whatever we want. Here, for example, we have both apps. And if we want to change, let's say, the color for the web one, we can, what we can do is set a background color to black, and then let's change this to white, and we can see here, if you update this, well, this has changed, and obviously this hasn't, even though they look really similar. Let's do the same to show that we can change it also for the mobile view. So we will see a background color and a black title. So this way, I think, let's see if we have, let's check here. Okay, so yeah, this way we can modify both views any way we want, and we will remain having the same business logic. Something that I haven't done in this presentation, in this demo, is to implement tests, but this is the same as always. You can test your Redux and any business logic with unit tests, and it will work for both platforms. So well, that's the main idea of these presentations. I don't know if anyone has any questions. Or...
I have a question.
Yeah.
Great presentation, by the way. Just curious, you showed us that you had a Webpack file.
Yeah.
So, and I also see that you have a gulp file there. So does this mean that you did not use create React app to start this application?
Yeah, that's right. So this is one approach that I found for doing it. A disclaimer, I haven't used this in production. A lot of people has, but I didn't have the opportunity to deploy this. But yeah, for example, here we have the Webpack and the gulp, where I think the gulp file does what a create React app configuration would do. So as you can see here in the default, that is what I am running right now. We run the serve, and this will start the web server with the index HTML, and the index HTML imports the script.js file, which is also generated by another command of gulp, that is the build one. So yeah, I've seen other ways of implementing this. For example, setting up a Gatsby app, or also a Next.js app, instead of doing it this way. And those frameworks would take care of all the configuration to make it run. I just wanted to build a quick demo, so I found a way of doing it without implementing a framework. But yeah, you can do it any way you want.
Right. Yeah, I was just asking, like, is there any place where you copied this over, or some documentation on how you set this up, just to
Yeah,
have us, you know, kind of like a boilerplate for React
yeah,
applications that will share React Native components?
yeah. So I took this configuration from a blog, nothing really official, but yeah, I will push this demo and I will keep like clean this repo so that we can have a boilerplate to start if we want to like have a template to start working with shared code.
Great. I think this is very, very useful, really. And the other question that I had is, um, I haven't thought a lot through from the short code that we saw, but have you found a way to kind of normalize the the styling? Let's say that usually you won't have the same styling for a mobile application that you will have for a web application, but since this example is exactly that case where they both look the same.
Yeah.
So have you found a way to have like one CSS for all?
Yeah, so this is the case of sharing the codes for the view, like kinda. You can use, I think you can use libraries like styled components to share the styling through from both applications. Like, I don't know if you have used it before. I have used it. It's really clean. But I think one of the advantages of this approach, particularly, is having separated the views. In this demo, it isn't really clear because they look kind of the same. We have a list in both apps, but yeah, you can do it by using styled components. For example, I will in a README I will add the alternatives and the libraries that exist to share the styling between both apps. Something that it would be really useful, and I think it's a good practice, is to share like the color palette for both apps and translation and all that kind of stuff that will remain the same for both of them. So yeah, that's a good approach.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much.
No, thank you. So any other question? See this one. Okay, so I think we can end this presentation if nobody has any other questions about it. I don't know, Fabricio, well, how we should continue.
Great presentation. We will publish the recording, and in the recording description, there you will have the link to the slides and the repo. And for sure, we will publish this as a practice on our wiki, so stay tuned for that as well.
Great,
Great
thanks.
presentation, Lucas. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for being here. Have a nice day.
Nice, Lucas. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Lucas. Great presentation.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, Lucas.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.